There was a time when Halloween belonged to the children. The rustle of plastic costumes, clatter of sneakers on wet sidewalks, porch lights glowing like beacons under cloudy skies. Candy was currency. Those stories were harmless. And every house with a jack-o'-lantern was a promise. You were safe here. But in 1974, that promise was broken. The danger didn't come from a stranger hiding in the dark. It came from a father with a plan. From the man who knew exactly what he was handing to his son when he dropped that long, colorful tube into his trick-or-treat bag. A cold current began to run beneath the sugar and costumes. The streetlights didn't seem as warm, and the laughter didn't echo as far. Parents started walking closer to their children. Porch lights stayed on a little later. Every rustling candy wrapper felt like something that needed to be checked. Not because the world had become less safe. It hadn't. But because we realized how easy it was to lose the illusion that it ever was. This is the story of Ronald Clark O'Bryan, and how one man made Halloween feel hollow. It was Thursday night in Deer Park, Texas. The weather was damp and gray, but not enough to cancel Halloween. Ronald Clark O'Bryan was out with his children, 8-year-old Timothy and 5-year-old Elizabeth, along with the neighbor and the neighbor's 2 children. 4 kids total, bundled in costumes, walking from door to door in a quiet suburban neighborhood. Timothy O'Bryan wore a homemade Planet of the Apes costume that year. His hands were sticky from candy. His mask didn't quite fit. They stayed mostly on one street, Donrellin Drive. It wasn't especially busy, and the houses were close enough that the adults could watch all 4 kids without much effort. At one house, no one answered. The porch light was off. The kids ran ahead to the next house, impatient. Ronald stayed behind. He told them he'd wait in case someone came to the door. When he caught up with the group a minute later, he was holding 5 21-inch Pixie Stix tubes, long, colorful, sealed at the top with staples. He handed them out, one to each of the 4 children, and one extra he said was for another boy they knew from church. The rest of the night was uneventful. The kids collected more candy, they laughed, the rain began to pick up. Eventually, the group headed home. Timothy was allowed to choose one piece of candy before bed. He chose the Pixie Stix. He struggled to get it open, so his father helped him, tore off the top, loosened the powder. Timothy said it tasted bitter. His father gave him Kool-Aid to wash it down. Within moments, he began to vomit. Then came the convulsions. And then he stopped breathing. An ambulance was called, but there was nothing anyone could do. Timothy O'Bryan was dead before he reached the hospital. Halloween was over, but the panic was just beginning. No one knew what happened. An allergic reaction, a tainted candy, a horrible accident. But by morning, the Harris County medical examiner had found the answer: cyanide. Enough to kill 3 or 4 adults, packed in the top 2 inches of that Pixie Stix. The police were sent into the streets. Warnings went out over the radio. Officers began knocking on doors, collecting candy from families across Deer Park. Parents emptied out their kids' bags, terrified that more poison might be inside. One Pixie Stix was found unopened, in the hands of a child who had tried to eat it, but couldn't get past the staple sealing the top. It might have saved his life. The other 4 tubes were recovered. All had been tampered with in the same way. Sliced open, filled with potassium cyanide, and resealed with the staple. Ronald O'Bryan told police the candy came from a specific house on the trick-or-treat route. He said the porch light had been off, but he'd stayed behind while the others walked ahead. A man inside, he didn't see who, had opened the door, reached out with the candy, and shut it again without a word. Police investigated the house. The man who lived there was an air traffic controller at Hobby Airport, and he had a rock-solid alibi. He'd been at work all night, with dozens of witnesses and time-stamped records to prove it. That was the first crack in O'Bryan's story, but not the last. Detectives quickly realized that none of the homes the group had visited had handed out pixie sticks that night. No one else had seen O'Bryan receive them. No one else had seen him carry them, until he returned with them in his hand. They started to look at him more closely. Ronald was quiet. Too quiet. He kept repeating the same lines to officers, word for word, like a script. And the next morning, just hours after Timothy's death, he called the life insurance company to ask about collecting the payout. That call changed everything. Detectives obtained a warrant and began digging into Ronald O'Bryan's finances. What they found shocked them. He was drowning in debt. Over $100,000 owed across multiple credit lines. His car was on the verge of being repossessed. He was months behind on house payments. And despite his outward appearance as a church-going family man, he was collapsing under financial pressure. Much more damning than that was the insurance. O'Bryan had taken out multiple life insurance policies on both of his children earlier that year. A $10,000 policy in January, another $20,000 in September, and less than a month before Halloween, an additional $20,000. He hadn't told his wife about any of them. Altogether, he stood to collect $60,000 if Timothy died. Police also learned that Ronald had recently asked a friend who worked in a chemical supply company how much cyanide it would take to kill a person. He'd been spotted at a local college library reading about poisons. And he had even inquired with the chemical distributor in Houston about purchasing potassium cyanide, but left after learning the smallest order available was 5 pounds. On November 5th, 1974, just 5 days after Halloween, Ronald Clark O'Bryan was arrested for the murder of his son. Ronald Clark O'Bryan's trial began in Houston on May 5th, 1975. The prosecution wasted no time laying out their case. A father buried in debt saw his own son as an insurance payout. A man who bought time with smiles and church attendance, while quietly applauding a murder. Witnesses testified that Ronald had researched cyanide, that he'd inquired about buying it, that he'd talked to coworkers about how much it would take to kill someone, that he'd taken out life insurance policies on his children without his wife's knowledge. The defense clung to the idea that O'Bryan was simply unlucky, that some unknown individual had given the candy to him, that he was just another victim. But no one else saw him receive the candy. No other pixie sticks were given out by any home on the route. And the man O'Bryan had accused, the supposed homeowner, was proven to be at work the entire night with time logs and witnesses to confirm it. The jury took just 46 minutes to find Ronald Clark O'Bryan guilty of capital murder and 4 counts of attempted murder. After another 71 minutes of deliberation, they returned with his sentence: death. In the press, he became the Candy Man, the man who killed Halloween. But to the people who sat in that courtroom, and to his own family mourning 8-year-old Timothy, he was something worse. He was the man who poisoned his own child. After the conviction in 1975, Ronald Clark O'Bryan spent nearly a decade on death row under Texas law. His legal team pursued multiple appeals, but each was denied. On March 31st, 1984, O'Bryan was executed by lethal injection at the Huntsville unit in Texas. In his final statement, he maintained his innocence and offered general words of forgiveness and love, but he never admitted to the crime. Outside the prison, nearly 300 demonstrators gathered. Some protested the death penalty. Others came in costume and chanted "trick or treat." To some, the execution brought closure. To others, it only marked the end of a story that had already done its damage. The story of Ronald Clark O'Bryan didn't end with his execution. It lingered, spread, took on a life of its own. In the decades since, his crime has been retold more often than his name. A child poisoned by Halloween candy, a parent too trusting. The holiday turned deadly. It became folklore, a campfire story with a footnote of truth. News anchors lean into the ritual. Every October, they break out the same old warnings. Check your kids' candy. Avoid anything unwrapped. Inspect for tampering. Some even run B-roll of ominous bowls of sweets under flickering lights. It's not about danger, it's about ratings. Because fear, when packaged right, sells. Hospitals offer candy x-rays. Police departments post safety checklists. The imagery of Halloween safety has become its own performance. And for some parents, it changed everything. They stopped letting their kids go door to door. Halloween moved indoors to malls, schools, and church basements. Trunk or treats replaced front porches. Plastic pumpkins filled up under fluorescent lights. Yet, despite all the noise, one fact remains. Ronald Clark O'Bryan is the only confirmed case of a poisoned Halloween candy murder in American history. No stranger with a vendetta, no random psychopath with a grudge. Just one man. A man who used the myth to carry out the murder, and who, in doing so, made the myth stronger than ever. Kids today still hear the story, only now it's faceless. A boy eats bad candy and dies. A warning with no villain, just a chill. But the truth is more unsettling. It wasn't an urban legend. It was real. A man without hope and without humanity. A man willing to kill his own child for money. And his name was Ronald Clark O'Bryan.